The discovery that changed everything, Dr. Elena Rodriguez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she stared at the massive metal door buried beneath tons of red sand on Zirion 7. The planet was supposed to be empty, just another dead world in the Fed Outer Rim territories. But her sensors had detected something unusual buried beneath the surface, something that didn't match any known architecture in the Galactic database. Elena had been working for the Galactic Preservation Council for 8 years, cataloging ancient ruins and forgotten civilizations across the galaxy. It was peaceful work, far from the political tensions that seemed to plague human colonies everywhere. As one of the few humans trusted with archaeological expeditions, she took pride in her careful, methodical approach to uncovering the past. The door was enormous, easily 4 meters tall, and made of a metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols were carved deep into its surface, symbols that made Elena's head ache when she looked at them too long. She had seen thousands of alien writing systems in her career, but these felt different. They felt familiar in a way that made no sense. Her excavation team consisted of 3 Cathari workers, insectoid beings known for their precision and attention to detail. They had been working for 2 weeks to uncover the structure, and what they found defied explanation. The building was massive, stretching deep underground, and appeared to be some kind of archive or data storage facility. Elena approached the door and placed her hand on the central symbol. The moment her skin touched the metal, the symbols began to glow with a soft blue light. The door split down the middle with a sound like thunder, revealing a corridor that stretched into darkness. The Cathari workers chittered nervously. "Dr. Rodriguez," said Kixthai, the team leader, "perhaps we should report this to the council before proceeding. The energy readings are unlike anything in our databases." Elena hesitated. Standard protocol required her to report any major discoveries immediately. But something about this place called to her, urged her to explore before the council bureaucrats arrived and turned the site into a restricted zone. "We'll do a preliminary survey first," she decided, "just to ensure it's safe." The corridor led to a vast circular chamber lined with what appeared to be data storage units. Each unit was roughly the size of a human torso and pulsed with the same blue light as the door symbols. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal with a single, larger device that seemed to be some kind of central computer. Elena approached the central unit carefully. As she drew closer, symbols appeared in the air above it, floating like holograms. To her amazement, she could read them, not because she recognized the language, but because somehow, impossibly, she understood their meaning. "Welcome, child of Terra," the symbols said. "You have found the last archive of the Terran Federation." Elena's heart stopped. Terra was the ancient name for Earth, but according to every historical record she knew, humans had never called themselves the Terran Federation. Humans were a young species, barely 300 years in space, guided and protected by the older, wiser civilizations of the Galactic Council. She reached out and touched the central device. Immediately, the chamber filled with light and images began to play in the air around her. Elena watched in stunned silence as the true history of humanity unfolded before her eyes. 800 years ago, humans had not been the primitive planet-bound species described in the official histories. They had been explorers, builders, and peacekeepers. The Terran Federation had controlled over 200 star systems, and human ships had been the fastest and most advanced in the galaxy. Human diplomats had negotiated peace between warring species. Human engineers had built the great trade routes that connected distant worlds, and human scientists had made discoveries that benefited all of galactic civilization. The images showed vast human cities among the stars, massive fleets of exploration vessels, and humans working alongside dozens of alien species as equals. not as junior partners being uplifted by more advanced civilizations. But then the images changed. Elena watched in horror as she saw what the records called the Great Silence. It had not been a natural disaster or an alien invasion, as the official histories claimed. It had been a coordinated attack by the very species who now sat on the Galactic Council. The Vex High, the reptilian species who currently served as the Council's military leaders, had developed a weapon that could disrupt human neural patterns on a massive scale. Working with the Korfek energy beings and the Zephmar machine intelligences, they had launched a galaxy-wide assault on human civilization. The attack was not meant to destroy humanity, but to break it. The weapon scrambled human memories, wiped out their knowledge of advanced technology, and left them confused and helpless. Human colonies were evacuated and relocated to primitive worlds. Their great cities were dismantled, their ships destroyed, their records erased. The surviving humans were told they were refugees from a dying world, a young species being given a chance to join galactic civilization. They were grateful for the help they received, never knowing they were being given back a tiny fraction of what had been stolen from them. Elena watched her own people's history being erased, their achievements attributed to other species, their very identity stolen. The humans of today worked as miners, farmers, and laborers across the galaxy, never knowing their ancestors had been the galaxy's greatest civilization. The holographic display showed her one final image, a map of hidden archives like this one, scattered across the galaxy, waiting for humans to rediscover their heritage. The Terran Federation's leaders had suspected the attack was coming and had hidden copies of their civilization's knowledge in secret vaults, protected by genetic locks that would only respond to human DNA. Elena staggered backward, her mind reeling from the revelation. Everything she had been taught about human history was a lie. Every human in the galaxy was living a lie, working for the very beings who had destroyed their civilization and stolen their birthright. Behind her, the Kethari workers were chattering excitedly. They had seen the images too, and Elena realized they were preparing to report the discovery to the Council. Once the Council knew about the archive, it would be classified, sealed, and its contents would disappear forever. Elena made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. She activated her personal data recorder and began copying everything she could from the archive. The central computer seemed to recognize her intent and began transferring files at incredible speed. As the download continued, Elena's mind raced. She thought about the millions of humans across the galaxy, living as second-class citizens in their own universe. She thought about the human children being taught that their species was young and primitive, that they should be grateful for the chance to serve their betters. The data transfer was taking too long. Elena could hear the Kethari outside the chamber, speaking rapidly into their communicators. They were calling for Council reinforcements, probably claiming they had discovered a dangerous alien weapon, with 20% of the archives still to transfer. Elena heard the sound of ships landing outside. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor, and she knew her time was running out. The Council's security forces were coming. Elena grabbed a small data crystal from the central computer and pressed it to her forehead. Knowledge flooded into her mind, not just facts and figures, but memories. She could suddenly recall the taste of food from Terran colonies, the sound of human voices singing songs that had been forgotten for centuries, the feeling of standing on the deck of a Terran starship as it jumped between the stars. The footsteps were getting closer. Elena could hear voices, including one she recognized, Director Vex High of the Council's Historical Preservation Division. He was the one who had approved her mission to Zirion 7, and now she understood why. He had known about the archive all along and had been waiting for a human to unlock it so he could destroy it. Elena activated the archive's emergency protocols. The computer began wiping its memory banks, but not before copying its core files to a dozen different locations across the galaxy. Hidden transmitters activated, sending the truth about human history to every corner of space. Asterisk. As the security forces burst into the chamber, Elena smiled. They were too late. The truth was already spreading, carried by quantum signals that would reach human colonies, mining stations, and research facilities across the galaxy. Director. Vexhi's yellow eyes glowed with rage as he surveyed the scene. "Arrest the human," he ordered. "Charge her with unauthorized access to classified materials." But Elena was no longer afraid. She had spent her life studying the past, and now she knew the future. Humanity was about to remember who they really were. The galaxy was about to change forever. Asterisk the awakening thunder. 3 days after Elena's capture, the first human mining station received a transmission that changed everything. Captain Marcus Chun, a former Galactic Navy officer now working security for the Kepler Station mining operation, stared at his console in disbelief as the archived data flowed across his screen. Marcus had served in the Navy for 15 years, always wondering why human officers were never promoted beyond mid-level positions, why human ships used outdated technology, and why humans were always assigned to the most dangerous missions. The data from Elena's transmission answered every question he had ever asked. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of human-populated worlds. Engineers working on council projects suddenly understood why they were never allowed to see complete technical specifications. Farmers on agricultural colonies realized why their crops were shipped to council worlds while their own families lived on rationed food. Soldiers serving in council armies began to question why their weapons were generations behind what other species carried. But the most dramatic changes were happening inside human minds themselves. The data Elena had broadcast contained not just historical records, but genetic activation sequences that had been embedded in human DNA centuries ago. As humans read the true history of their species, dormant neural pathways began to reactivate. Zahra al-Rashid, a human engineer working on a council space station, felt the change first as a tingling in her fingertips while reading the technical specifications for a Terran Federation starship. Suddenly, she could see exactly how the ship's systems worked, not just understand them intellectually, but feel them as if she had built them herself. Within hours, Zahra had redesigned the station's power grid, increasing its efficiency by 300%. The other engineers, all from various council species, stared in amazement as she worked with a precision and intuition that seemed impossible. Similar awakenings were happening across human space. Dr. James Park, a medical researcher on New Geneva, found himself remembering surgical techniques that had never been taught in any medical school. Commander Sarah Okafor, stationed with the Council Defense Fleet, began to understand tactical concepts that made her human unit more effective than squadrons with decades more experience. The Council's response was swift and brutal. Director. Vexhi issued orders to arrest any human showing signs of dangerous neural activity. Council security forces began raiding human settlements, claiming they were protecting other species from a human mental plague. But the humans were no longer defenseless. Marcus Chon organized the mining station workers and used Elena's data to construct weapons based on Terran Federation designs. The weapons were crude compared to the originals, but they were effective. Enough to drive off the first Council attack force. Word of the victory spread through hidden communication networks that humans had instinctively created. The networks used quantum encryption techniques that no human consciously knew but somehow remembered how to build. Elena, imprisoned on the Council's capital world of Nexus Prime, watched through her cell window as the galaxy began to change. Even locked away, she could feel her people awakening. The genetic memories were spreading faster than the Council could contain them. Her chance came when a human maintenance worker named David Santos entered her cell block. Santos had been working in the prison for 3 years, invisible to the alien guards who barely acknowledged human existence. But the awakening had reached him too, and he now remembered that his great-grandfather had been a Terran Federation intelligence operative. "Dr. Rodriguez," Santos whispered as he worked on the cell's electronic lock, "we're getting you out of here. The resistance needs its first leader." Elena smiled grimly. "I'm not a leader, David. I'm just an archaeologist who stumbled onto the truth." "That's what makes you perfect for the job," Santos replied as the cell door clicked open. "You've seen what we used to be. Now you can show us how to become that again." Elena's escape triggered the largest manhunt in Council history, but she had advantages the Council didn't expect. Humans across the galaxy had spontaneously organized into resistance cells, using their reawakened skills to stay ahead of their pursuers. The resistance found Elena on the trading station Deep Harbor, where she began working with Marcus Chun, Zara al-Rashid, and other awakened humans to plan their next move. They had access to fragments of Terran Federation technology, but they needed more. They needed to find another archive. Elena's data contained the locations of 12 other hidden archives scattered across the galaxy. The nearest one was on Arcturus 7, a world the Council used as a strategic military base. Getting there would require ships, weapons, and a level of coordination that would announce humanity's return to the galaxy. Marcus Chun stepped forward during their planning session. "I've been thinking about this wrong," he said. "We've been hiding, trying to stay under the Council's radar. But that's not who we are. We're humans. We don't hide." He activated a holographic display showing the current positions of human populations across the galaxy. There were over 50 million humans working on Council projects, living on Council worlds, serving in Council militaries. They were everywhere, and now they were all beginning to remember. Asterisk. "We don't sneak into Arcturus 7, Marcus continued. "We take it. We announce to the galaxy that humanity is back." Zara pulled up the technical specifications for the base's defenses. With her reawakened engineering skills, she could see weaknesses that the original designers had never considered. "The base's shields are designed to stop conventional attacks," she said. "But they're vulnerable to harmonically resonant energy pulses. It's a technique I remember from ... somewhere." Sarah Okafor nodded. "I can get us ships." "There are 12 human captains in the Council merchant fleet who've been asking questions since the awakening started. They're ready to fight." The plan they developed was audacious beyond belief. 12 lightly armed merchant vessels would attack one of the Council's most heavily defended installations. By any reasonable military analysis, it was suicide. But Elena remembered something from the archive that changed everything. The Terran Federation didn't win because they had the best weapons, she told the assembled resistance leaders. They won because humans think differently. We see patterns others miss. We adapt faster. We never give up. The attack on Arcturus 7 began at dawn on the 4th day after Elena's escape. The Council's defense forces watched in confusion as 12 human ships approached their installation using flight patterns that made no tactical sense. Sarah Okafor commanded the lead ship, and as the battle began, she felt something she had never experienced before: complete certainty. Every move the Council forces made seemed obvious to her. She could predict their tactics, anticipate their responses, and counter their strategies before they fully formed. The human fleet danced through the Council's defenses like they were, dancing to music only they could hear. Zara's harmonically resonant energy pulses tore through the base's shields as if they were made of paper. Marcus coordinated ground forces with precision that amazed even veteran Council military observers. Within 6 hours, Arcturus 7 was under human control. The second archive had been secured, and its data immediately began broadcasting across the galaxy. Director Vex High stood in the Council's emergency session, his yellow eyes blazing with fury. "The humans must be stopped," he declared. "They represent an existential threat to galactic order." But other council members were beginning to have doubts. The humans had just accomplished something that should have been impossible, and they had done it with minimal casualties and no unnecessary destruction. These were not the actions of a barbaric species bent on conquest. Elena stood in the recovered archive on Arcturus 7, watching as more humans arrived every hour. They came in stolen ships, commandeered transports, and converted mining vessels. They came from every corner of the galaxy, drawn by something deeper than conscious thought. As she activated the archive's central computer, Elena felt the presence of every human in the galaxy. They were all connected now, all remembering, all becoming what they had always been meant to be. The computer displayed a message from the Yasij, from the Terran Federation's last president. "To those who find this message, know that humanity's greatest strength has never been our technology or our weapons. It has been our refusal to accept defeat, our ability to hope when hope seems impossible, and our determination to stand together when the galaxy tries to tear us apart." Elena looked around at her people, at humans who had been miners and farmers, and clerks just days ago, but who now stood ready to reclaim their birthright among the stars. She activated the galaxy-wide communication network and began to speak. "People of the galaxy," she said, her voice carrying to every inhabited world in known space. "We are the humans of the new Terran Republic. We do not come in conquest or revenge. We come to take our place as equals among the stars, as is our right and our destiny." Across the galaxy, humans stood taller. In council chambers, alien representatives began to reconsider 8 centuries of policy. On Earth itself, humans who had never left their homeworld felt stirrings of ancient dreams. The chains that had bound humanity for 800 years were finally broken. The galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.